Hi and welcome back friends. Now in this video we are going to see that how to traverse this singly linked list or linked list in general. Okay, so basically this video has two parts. In the part 1 we are going to see that what does actually this mean, and in the next part we are going to see that how to implement the C code to actually traverse the singly linked list or linked list in general. So let's start the video. So welcome to my class. So here is the today's agenda. The topics that we are going to cover in our today's agenda are: first we'll see that what is linked list traversal actually, and after that we'll see the explanation and implementation part of the same. Okay, so let's start the video and stay tuned with me. Let's talk about first what is linked list traversal. Okay, so traversing means to move through each element of the linked list. That means, say you have a linked list of 5 nodes, okay, and you want to traverse that linked list from starting from the first node to last node. Then how can you do in C? Okay, so this is the actually topic that how to traverse the linked list. Okay, so let's see and discuss 2 points that we have here. So first point says that if you are talking about traverse the singly linked list, then what happens is that in singly linked list we can traverse the linked list in only one direction. As we know that singly linked lists are unidirectional, this means that we will be able to traverse the linked list only in one direction, and that direction is specified, that is from head to last node. Okay, so if you want to traverse the linked list, then this is the only possible direction. But if you want to traverse it from backwards, then it is not possible in the case of singly linked list. Okay, so now what second point says is that unlike arrays, we cannot directly fetch the data of any node. Okay, so why there is need to traverse the linked list actually? So the need come because we know that in the case of array, say if you have 5 elements and you want to fetch the data that has been stored at the fourth element, then just you can use the printf statement and array name, and inside the square brackets you just need to give the index of that array element. Okay, so by this way you can fetch the data that has been stored at the fourth position. But in case of linked list, say you have a linked list of 5 nodes and you want to fetch the data that has been stored at the fourth node, then you cannot directly go to the fourth node and fetch the data that has been stored in that. So this is the drawback in the case of linked list, and also this is the difference between the array and the linked list. So this difference brings a unique and important concept to traverse the linked list. Okay, so to get the data of the nodes, we have to traverse the linked list. So let's move on to the implementation part of the to traverse the singly linked list or linked list in general. So here is the piece of code that we have. Okay, so let's first discuss the idea behind this. So idea behind this is that as we know that singly linked lists are unidirectional, that means we will be able to only traverse from the first node to last node. Okay, so how we can traverse? So we can traverse using a temporary pointer p. Okay, so p will first point to the first node. Okay, traversing in linked list means that we are going to define an temporary pointer, and one by one I am going to traverse the linked list by changing the value or the address value inside the pointer, inside the temporary pointer. Okay, so say to point to the first node, I am going to define a first pointer to the structure, and the value of p I will give as 100. So when value of p will become 100, this means that the p is now pointing to the first node. Now if you want to fetch the data of the first node, then how can you fetch? You can fetch by doing p arrow data. If you do p arrow data, that means you are fetching the actual data that has been stored in the first node. Now if you want to fetch the address or the next pointer of the first node, then you can do again p arrow next. Okay, so instead of p arrow next, we can also use a star p parenthesis dot next. It will give the same. Okay, so p arrow next is same as star p parenthesis dot next, and p arrow data is same as star p parenthesis dot data. Okay, so as in this code, first the p was pointing to this, and after i I will update the value of p from 100 to 200. So how we can do by p equals to star p dot next. As we know that initially the p has value 100, okay, and it is pointing to the first node. So if you do star p dot next, then its value will be star p dot next value will become 200, and this 200 will be assigned to this p pointer. That means the p value has been updated from 100 to 200, and hence now the p is pointing to second node now. Okay, so similarly when you reach to the last node, so how to recognize that you have actually reached to the last node? Okay, so to recognize, we are going to check one condition. So what is that condition? That condition is, if you look it, if the p is pointing to the last node, then the value of star p dot next is, or p arrow next is null. So I will put the condition that, oh look, check whether star p dot next is null or not. If it is null, then that specifies that, oh look, we have reached to the end of the linked list. This is how you traverse a linked list. Now let's just see the code part here. So as we know that the p is going to point to the structure, hence it should be struct node star p, and first I am going to point it to the null. Okay, and after that in the second line, as we are going to start the start to traverse the linked list starting from the first node, and we know also that head always points to the first node. So to make the p to point to the first node, what we can do is that we can assign the value that has been stored in the head into the p. Okay, so it has a starting pointing to the first node. Now we are going to take help of the while loop. Inside the while loop, the condition is something star p dot next is not equals to null. Okay, so as we know that the condition to detect that whether we are at the last node or not is to check whether star p dot next is equals to null or not. If it is equals to null, that means we are at the last position of the linked list. Okay, so we need to still go through these two nodes, hence we are going to check the linked list, check the condition that check whether star p dot next is not equals to null. Okay, so if this condition is true, that means we are still not finished the traversing part, or still we have not reached to the end of the linked list. Okay, so if this condition is true, after that, in this case, from second line, the p was pointing to this, and it has checked that star p dot next value is 200. That means it is not equals to null. Hence, it enters the while loop. It enters the while loop. The value of p has been updated from initial p to star p dot next. So in this case, the p was pointing to the first node, whose value of p was 100. Now we want the p to point to the second node. Okay, so to make that possible, we are going to update the value of p from 100 to 200. That means we are going to do the assignment part, p equals to star p dot next. Do note here is that instead of star p dot next, you can also use p arrow next. Okay, so similarly when you do this, now the p will point to the second node. Again it will go on to the while loop. Again it will check whether star p dot next is not equals to null or not. So as the p is pointing to the second node, hence the star p dot next value is 300, which is not null. Hence again this condition is satisfied. It will come again, and now after this assignment operation, it will now point to the third node. Similarly it will point to the fourth node. Now as soon it reach the fourth node, which is the last node in our case, so again it will check whether star p dot next is not equals to null or not. So in this case, when p points to the first node or to the last node in my case, the value of star p dot next is equal to null. That means this condition has become false, and hence it will return. That means it will exit from the while loop. So this is how we traverse the linked list from the first node, starting from the first node to the last node. So I hope you have understood this concept. So please make sure that you go to Visual Studio IDE or any code editor and practice this code. Okay, so I hope you have understood it completely. So that's it for this video. Thank you and Jai Hind.